Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to today's Caffeine for the Soul. And today I want to talk about a whole new way of thinking about suffering. And before we begin, I want you to consider a possibility that might sound crazy. What if you could eliminate the vast majority of your suffering in the next 10 minutes? Now, that might sound lovely, that might sound crazy, that might sound idealistic. You might use that to put pressure on yourself to really listen and really get this. But what I'd like to encourage you to do is just be open to the possibility that even something as real in your felt world as suffering really could just disappear. And you'll hopefully see why I've started there as we go. There's a saying that I've always been taken by, which is that in life, pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional, but you have to provide it for yourself. At various stages in my understanding, in my life journey, I've seen that as a sort of a macho thing. Well, yeah, you got to do some pain, but you're the one creating the suffering. And if you were empowered, if you just controlled your mind, if you just positive thought, you wouldn't have to do the suffering. And even talking about it tires me out now. But that doesn't mean that it looks less true to me. It just means I have a different understanding of where suffering comes from and what it is. So, all suffering, it seems to me, is caused by one thing: the innocent misuse of the gift of thought. Now, that's a phrase you may have heard me use multiple times in these podcasts and other things that I do. And it's a phrase, I don't know if it was ever actually said by Sid Banks, the enlightened Scottish welder, but if he didn't say it in those exact words, he certainly talked about it in a lot of different ways. And when I talk about the gift of thought, thought is the creative potential. Thought is the Play-Doh of the universe. It's that from which everything is created. Every experience you imagine begins in thought. It is the ultimate creative force. It is a gift, and we are all given it. We may have different levels of intellect, we may have different accumulation of data depending on our upbringing, but we are all given this same gift of thought. But it's rarely talked about, other than later in life where we talk about positive thought and negative thought, and maybe early in life where our church or temple or mosque teaches us about good thought and bad thought. We're rarely shown the divine neutrality of thought. It's like there isn't good Play-Doh and bad Play-Doh, good Play-Doh and evil Play-Doh. There's just Play-Doh, and then we do with it what we do with it. And we can use the same Play-Doh to create beautiful forests, or scary lions, or comical barbershops. But at the end of the day, it's still just Play-Doh. Now, because we tend not to notice ourselves thinking, in fact, you might even think, well, I don't think that much. I promise you, you're thinking 24/7. That's how you are experiencing life. That's how we all experience life. Well, it's easy to understand how we can innocently misuse the gift of thought. Because we think, oh, well, no, it's not me. It's the lion. It's not me. It's the barbershop. It's not me. It's the forest. But we have created that experience through the gift of thought. And if we're not aware we're creating it, well, we're using the gift against ourselves. we're unintentionally harming ourselves with our own thinking, which is inherently innocent. Hence the innocent misuse of the gift of thought. All suffering is the innocent misuse of the gift of thought. Pain can be caused in the outside world. Pain is an experience in our biology. Now, even pain's a little suspect, right? There's a lot of thought in pain. I had an uncle who did his doctoral thesis on phantom limb pain after World War II, when they found that there were soldiers who would experience incredible pain in limbs that were no longer attached to their bodies. So even pain, there's a lot of thought in, but suffering is created by the innocent misuse of the gift of thought. And when we become aware of it, we don't have to beat ourselves up. We don't have to shame ourselves. We don't have to create more suffering through regret. Right? Regret is another innocent misuse of the gift of thought. Despair, another innocent misuse of the gift of thought. Scaring yourself about what might I do with thought next is another innocent misuse of the gift of thought. We can start to notice whether we're using thought to create heaven or hell, as an expression of the beautiful feelings we have inside us, or to create dark experiences that kind of match our mood. Like, I don't know if you still do this, but certainly almost any teenager I've ever met, including me when I was a teenager, would deliberately, when you're sad, you put on music that will make you sadder. Well, that's how we innocently misuse thought. We pile on ourselves. But when we start to see it for what it is, an option, something that we don't have control over, but we've got a heck of a lot of freedom around, then we just become less and less likely to use thought against ourselves. And built into the system, here's the good news, built into our system from birth is a foolproof use-misuse detector. You know you're using thought against yourself because it feels horrible. And you know you're using thought as an expression for yourself when you feel well, at peace, happy, curious, joyful, compassionate, loving. So when I said at the beginning that you could eliminate the vast majority of your suffering in the next 10 minutes, it's because without the innocent misuse of the gift of thought, there is no suffering. And once you catch wise to it, it begins to go away all by itself, not because it's magic, but because we're really sensible, us humans. I know we don't look it sometimes, but there's a reason that you almost never innocently misuse a fork to stab yourself in the thigh. Because you realized at some point, oh, that hurts and is a bad idea. When you start to notice yourself poking yourself in the mind with the gift of thought, you'll just stop doing it so much. And it will become a very occasional occurrence instead of something that happens so often that it feels like a constant. Have fun, learn heaps, happy exploring, and I'll talk with you soon.